This week's track segment from Detroit, round 11, Jim Holley, and this is one heck of a track. Look at that start.
Well, you know, that's what I like. I mean, last weekend in Toronto, we had a short starting line. We had a lot of first turn pileups and a lot of mayhem in that first turn. I think, you know, when you run them down a little deeper, I think the guys have a little bit more respect for the speed when they get into that first turn. So, but I like it because you really get to see the horsepower and whose bikes are pulling what down the straightaway.
Right, and no pun intended, but check out the monster sweeper that goes up into the grandstands. After the finish line, they're going straight up, making a tight left, and then rocketing back down and going backwards on the starting line. So it's going to be super high speed, but could be some passing opportunities there too.
Well, and we are in Michigan. I remember when I was riding Pontiac, that's a tradition here in Michigan where we always went up in the stands. Traditionally, this was a doubleheader back in the Pontiac days, but we've always been in the stands in Michigan, and I always like when you go up in the stands. I think it adds a different element. You know, it's an off-cambered up there. Where do you see an off-cambered in Supercross?
Right.
Well, you're going to see it here tonight in Ford Field.
Right. And so speaking of Ford Field, it's a lot of floor space here. We got a lot of lanes, really long rhythm sections. You know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Glendale, a little bit of Atlanta, a little, you know, so that kind of lends itself to a guy I'm thinking of, maybe Ken Roczen, that's on a roll right now. What do you think?
Well, and you talk about Glendale, that's where Kenny Roczen got, you know, his first there. And, you know, Kenny's got a lot of momentum. You know, he's got 3 wins on the season now, and last weekend with that win up in Toronto, we'll see what happens. But, you know, Dungey's, you know, he's like an NFL quarterback. He's just managing the clock right now. Round 11, we got a few more to go here, and he's got a pretty good point lead still.
Right, he has a good point lead, but the Wolves are coming, hopefully. But to talk about this track a little bit more, the dirt, it's a little bit dry. They're putting a lot of water down on it. There's a little bit of rocks in there too, so we might see some handguards. And, you know, who knows, that could come into play in the main events. But it's a big track, a long start. We're going up in the stands. It's going to be an exciting night of racing.